The bedroom door was already half open. Tenny Andrews stopped in the hallway with her briefcase still in her hand. Late flight. 2 days early. She had texted no one because she wanted to surprise her husband. She heard the laugh first. Female. Soft. Comfortable. Tenny pushed the door the rest of the way. The woman on the bed was Korean. Beautiful. Naked under her white sheet. Minho's white shirt hung off the back of a chair Tenny had picked out herself. Choi Minho, heir to the Choi Syndicate, CEO of Choi International, the man Tenny had married 8 months ago to end a 3-year war, sat on the edge of the bed in nothing but trousers. He did not look surprised. He looked tired. Tenny stood in the doorway. The woman pulled the sheet up to her collarbone and watched Tenny with quiet, assessing eyes. Minho exhaled, and his mouth was wide open. She turned around. She did not say his name. She did not ask the woman to leave. She did not ask Minho to explain. There were no questions left that her eyes had not already answered. She walked back down the hallway, past the silk slippers a maid had left for her by the door, past the marble entry table where a fresh arrangement of white peonies sat, peonies she did not order and did not like. She did not slam the door. She closed it, quietly. 3 weeks later, in a private bathroom on the 42nd floor of an Andrews Maritime Tower across the river, Tenny Andrews would lock the door, sit down on cold marble, and stare at a pregnancy test that should not exist. 2 pink lines. She would keep this entirely to herself. Welcome to Afro-Korean Love Stories. In today's episode, we bring you betrayal, silent strength, a forbidden union, a buried secret, and a love that refused to die. If you're just joining us for the first time, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss out on new story drops. Let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to see how far these amazing stories have traveled. Now hold on to your seats as we take a deep dive into this amazing story. To understand a Black woman who could stand in her own bedroom doorway before walking out of her marriage, you have to understand who she was before she became Mrs. Choi. You have to understand the Andrews family, the steel and cargo dynasty her father built from a single freighter on the Lagos Lagoon when Tenny was 3 years old. By the time she was 24, she ran their entire Asia division out of a glass tower in Seoul. You have to understand the Choi family, 3 generations of Mafia royalty wearing the suits of legitimate businessmen, controlling every container that touched Korean water. You have to understand the war. For 3 years, Andrews Maritime and the Choi Syndicate had bled each other quietly. Cargo vanished. Lawyers disappeared. 2 of Tenny's uncles came home to Lagos in closed caskets. 3 of Minho's lieutenants washed up on the wrong side of a river. You have to understand the contract. 40 pages, drafted by the most expensive law firm in Seoul, sealed by 2 old men who had hated each other for a decade and were too tired to hate each other any longer. The contract had one fix for all of it: a wedding. A Nigerian heiress and a Korean mafia heir. Bound by paper and tradition. Bound until both empires breathed again. Tenny Andrews did not love Choi Minho. She respected the deal. She walked into that marriage the way she walked into every Andrews board meeting. Heels on marble. Spine straight. The wedding was held at the Choi family estate outside Seoul, attended by men in dark suits who did not smile at the bride and women in pearls who measured her hemline. She wore white because her mother insisted. She wore his ring because the contract demanded it. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, looked her new husband in the eye, and made him a promise no one in the room expected to mean anything. She kept that promise for 8 months. But to understand what broke in those 8 months, what had already been broken before she walked down the aisle, we have to go back further. Back to the year the war ended. The peace negotiation took 4 months. It was held in a private boardroom in the Lotte Hotel, on a floor reserved entirely for the talks. No phones. No assistants. Just 2 old men, few lawyers, and a stenographer who had signed a non-disclosure agreement strong enough to outlive her. Chief Adewale Andrews flew in from Lagos. Chairman Choi Tae-shik, Minho's father, arrived in a black armored sedan with 3 identical decoys. They did not shake hands the first day. By the 4th month, they shook hands once, briefly. At the end of the final session, after every clause had been negotiated, every loophole closed. The contract was 47 pages long. 46 of them were operational, port access agreements, profit-sharing arrangements, cargo handling protocols, mutual non-aggression terms enforceable in 3 separate jurisdictions. The 47th page was the marriage. The Andrews family would offer their only daughter. The Choi family would offer their only son. The marriage would be binding for a minimum of 5 years. Any dissolution before that would void every other clause in the contract and reopen the war. Tenny read the contract on the flight from Lagos to Seoul. She read it twice. She made one note in the margin, a comma she felt should be a semicolon, and signed her name on page 47 without lifting her pen. She was 26 years old. She was not in love. She was not afraid. She was just tired of burying her uncles. The wedding was held 3 weeks later at the Choi family estate in Gapyeong, 90 minutes outside Seoul. 400 guests, senators, bankers, 2 retired Korean prime ministers, 3 Nigerian governors. The kind of guest list that did not need to know what kind of business was being settled, only that it was. Tenny walked down a stone path lined with white hydrangeas on her father's arm. Her mother wept beside the aisle. Her brothers stood at the front in matching tuxedos, faces unreadable. Choi Min-ho waited at the altar in a black suit cut, so precisely it could have been a uniform. He did not smile when he saw her. He looked at her the way a man looks at a contract he has not finished reading. She held his gaze and did not look away. When Min-ho took her hand to slide the ring onto her finger, his hand was warm, steady. She had expected cold. She filed the small surprise away and kept her face still. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Min-ho did not kiss her. He bowed. A formal, contractual bow. Tenny returned it. The room clapped politely. And the war was over. The marriage that followed was not cruel. It was simply empty. They lived in a penthouse on the 38th floor of a building Min-ho's family owned in central Seoul. Separate offices. Separate schedules. Separate breakfasts. They appeared together at the events the contract required. Charity galas, industry banquets, government receptions, and were perfectly civil in front of every photograph. In private, Min-ho was polite. He held doors. He poured her wine. He asked about her parents. He never raised his voice. He also never touched her. There was one night, in month 3, after a charity gala she had not wanted to attend, she came home and found him already in the living room. Tie loose, glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up at her slowly, and for the first time since their wedding day, he looked at her like a woman, not like a clause. He asked her how the evening was. She answered. He poured her a glass. They talked for 40 minutes about nothing significant, and when she stood up to go to bed, he touched the small of her back for less than a second as she passed him. Less than a second. She felt it for 3 days. She told herself it meant nothing. By month 4, she understood it had meant nothing. By month 6, she understood the nothing had a name. She did not know the name yet, but she knew the shape of it. She knew the way his mother, Madame Choi, who never warmed to her, smiled at certain other women at family functions in a way she had never smiled at Tenny. She knew. She just did not have proof. And Tenny Andrews was a businesswoman before she was a wife. Businesswomen did not act on suspicion. They acted on documentation. So she waited. She kept running the Asia division. She kept attending the events the contract required. She kept wearing his ring. And one Friday evening in late spring, 8 months into the marriage that had bought peace between 2 empires, she came home from a business trip 2 days early, because she had finally decided it was time to look for the proof herself. The flight from Singapore landed at Incheon at 6:47 p.m. Tenny had planned to stay another 2 nights. The deal she had flown in to close, a contract with a Singaporean logistics firm for 3 new Andrews routes through Southeast Asia, had taken 8 days of negotiation and was meant to take 10. It closed early. She had texted her assistant to cancel the remaining hotel nights. She had not texted her husband. She told herself she did not want to disturb him. The truth was that she did not want to give him time to prepare. The driver met her at arrivals. He took her bag without comment. He asked if she would like to stop for anything. Her reply was no. The penthouse was on the 38th floor of a building owned by the Choi family. The doorman bowed when she walked through the lobby. The elevator was empty. The hallway was silent. She entered the apartment using the keypad. The foyer was lit. The kitchen was not. The bedroom door was already half open. She heard the laugh first. Female.
soft,
comfortable. Tenny walked toward it. She did not take off her coat. She did not stop to look at her own reflection in the hallway mirror she had hung herself. She pushed the door the rest of the way open. The woman on the bed was Yoon Soo-jin. Tenny had seen her 3 times before. Once at a Choi family gala. Once at a charity auction Madame Choi had hosted. Once in the corner of a photograph framed on Minho's father's office wall, taken at her 16th birthday party. The Yoon and Choi families had grown up together. 2 old Korean dynasties that had quietly agreed, 2 decades ago, that their children would marry. Then the war happened. Then Tenny happened. Soo-jin looked at her across the bed with quiet, assessing eyes. She did not look ashamed. She looked like a woman who had been waiting a long time for a wife to come home. Choi Min-ho sat on the edge of the bed. He did not look surprised either. He looked tired. Tenny stood in the doorway. She thought about how she had ridden the elevator up 40 seconds earlier, wondering whether she should bring him dinner, whether he would be working late, whether tonight might be the night they finally sat in the same room and talked about something other than the contract. She thought about her uncle Emeka, about his daughter at the funeral, about the way his son had asked 3 weeks afterward when Daddy was coming home. She thought about the comma she had refused to make a semicolon, about the promise she had made at the altar, about the fact that she had not, in 8 months, broken a single line of the deal. She turned around. She did not say his name. She did not ask Soo-jin to leave. She did not ask Min-ho to explain. There were no questions left that her eyes had not already answered. She walked back down the hallway, past the wedding photograph, past the silk slippers, past the white peonies she did not order and did not like. She did not slam the door. She closed it the way she closed every contract she had ever signed, quietly. Now I want to pause the story right here, because every single person in that bedroom made a choice.
and I want to know what you saw.
Min-ho did not look surprised. He did not jump up. He did not try to hide anything. He looked tired, like a man who had been waiting for this conversation. Was he secretly hoping to be caught? Or was he just done pretending? Tell me in the comments. Soo-jin did not flinch. She did not pull the sheet over her face. She sat in another woman's bed and looked Tenny dead in the eye like she was the one who belonged there. Type wicked in the comments if she knew exactly what she was doing. Type used if you think Min-ho dragged her into it. And Tenny, she did not scream. She did not slap him. She did not ask him one question. She just walked away. Was that strength? Or was that pride? Did she let him off too easy by leaving without a word? Or did she give him the worst punishment a woman can give a man? Drop your answers below. I'm reading every single one. Now, let's get back to the story. She did not drive herself. She got into the back of the car and gave the driver an address he had never been given before. The drive took 22 minutes. She sat in the back with her hands folded and did not cry. She had not yet decided whether or not crying was on her schedule. The Andrews Building was a 43-floor tower on the north side of the river. Purchased 2 years before the war, kept on the books as a quiet asset, used mostly for client suites and visiting executives. The Asia Division offices occupied floors 38 through 43. The penthouse on 43 was kept for her father. He had not stayed in it in over a year. She let herself in. She stood in the middle of a living room she had decorated for someone else's father and listened to the sound of her own breathing for 9 full minutes. Then she walked to the master bedroom, lay down in her coat, and slept for 11 hours. She did not tell a soul for 3 weeks. Not her mother, not her father, not her younger brother, not her assistant. She woke up every morning at 5:30. She ran the Asia Division from a desk on the 42nd floor. She took meetings. She closed 2 deals. She approved a fleet expansion her father had been pushing for since January. Min-ho called her phone 17 times in the first 4 days. She did not answer. On day 5, he stopped calling. On day 6, he came to one of the Andrews Building in person. Andrews' security told him she wasn't here. He responded, very quietly, that he would be back. He came back twice more in the next 2 weeks. Each time, the answer was the same. She knew he was coming even though it was the wrong building because the guards reported every visit to her directly. She read the reports the way she read shipping manifests, with a flat, professional eye. She did not feel anger. She did not feel grief. She felt something colder than either. She was 30 days from the doorway when her period was 12 days late. The bathroom on the 42nd floor of the Andrews Tower was small, private, mostly used by senior staff. She had walked past it every morning for 3 weeks without thinking about it. She bought the test at a pharmacy 6 blocks away.
Cash.
No bag. She locked the bathroom door. She sat on cold marble. She waited 3 minutes. 2 pink lines. She read the box 3 times. She read the instructions twice. She held the test up to the light as if the light might change what it was telling her. It did not. Tenny Andrews had taken precautions for 8 months.
Carefully.
On a schedule. Because she had never intended for the marriage to leave anything behind that could outlive it. There was only one night. A night in month 7. A night Minho had come home from a meeting in Tokyo and looked at her across the kitchen island the way he had looked at her on the night of the gala, and she had not stopped him. One night. One mistake she had not allowed herself to count as a mistake until right now. She sat in the bathroom for 40 minutes. When she finally stood up, she had made 3 decisions. She would not tell him. She would not tell her family, not yet. And she would not give the Choi Syndicate 1 cell, 1 breath, 1 heartbeat of leverage over a child she was already raising alone.
She washed her hands.
She straightened her blouse. She walked back to her office. She picked up the phone and called her assistant. And she said, in a voice that did not shake, "Clear my calendar for the rest of the year." Minho came back a 4th time. It was 11 weeks after she walked out. 12 days after she had taken the pregnancy test. 6 days after she had told her father, and only her father, the truth, both truths, the walkout and the baby. Chief Andrews had not asked questions. He had listened.
He had asked one thing.
Do you want me to handle him? She told him no. She would handle Minho herself. He came to the Andrews lobby on a Tuesday evening at 7:42 p.m. He wore a black overcoat. He came alone. He did not ask for her. He stood in the marble lobby and waited, the way a man waits when he has decided he will not leave until the door opens. The lead guard called her direct line. Tenny took the elevator down. She did not bring her assistant. She did not bring security. She walked across the lobby in flat shoes and a black wool coat, stopped 4 feet from her husband, and looked him in the eye for the first time since the doorway. He looked thinner. He did not speak first.
She did.
You are going to listen to me one time. Then you are going to leave. He nodded once. You will not call this number again. You will not come to this building again. You will not approach me at any event, any banquet, any port, any meeting. If I see you, I will file a court order. If you violate it, I will use it. I do not care what it costs your family. I do not care what it costs the contract. I do not care what it costs you.
She paused.
Do you understand? Minho looked at her for a long moment. He did not argue. He did not apologize. He said one sentence. I will not come to this building again. Then he turned around and walked out into the Seoul rain. He kept that promise. He never came back to the Andrews Tower again. He did not stop watching. She just did not know it yet. Minho hired 3 men he trusted. They were not Choi Syndicate. They were not on any payroll the Andrews family could trace. He paid them in cash, out of an account in Hong Kong, on the 1st of every month. Their only job was to know, every day, every hour, where Tenny Andrews was, who she was with, and whether she was safe. She told her mother at 6 months. Mrs. Andrews flew in from Lagos the next day with 3 suitcases and a face that did not ask one question. She moved into the penthouse on 43 and stayed until her grandson was born. The doctor was Nigerian. Mrs. Andrews had insisted. He came to the tower 3 times a week for the last trimester. He delivered the baby in a private medical suite on the 41st floor that Andrews Maritime had built for traveling executives and had never used for this. The labor lasted 11 hours. Tenny did not call her husband. She did not write his name on a single form. The birth certificate read father, unknown. She named the boy Alyawadabi.
Toby.
It meant God is great. He was a small baby. Quiet. When Mrs. Andrews held him to the light by the window, she went very still. She looked at her daughter across the room. Tenny, she said quietly. His eyes. Tenny did not answer. She had seen them already. They were not her eyes. They were not her mother's eyes. They were not Andrew's eyes. They were Choi Minho's eyes, exactly. The shape.
The depth.
The way they tracked light. The way they refused to blink when other infants would have blinked. She took her son from her mother's arms, held him against her shoulder, and looked out the window at the river. I know. That was the last time anyone in the Andrews family mentioned it out loud. She went back to work 6 weeks after the birth. She hired a black nanny named Mrs. Janet, 62 years old, raised 4 of her own, ran a household the way a colonel runs a barracks. Mrs. Janet moved into the penthouse and took the spare bedroom and never asked who the boy's father was. She had been told by Mrs. Andrews not to. That was enough. Tenny structured her life around a single rule. Toby came first. Everything else was logistics. She moved her morning meetings to her home office. She left the building every day at 5 p.m., even on contract days, even on closing days, even on the days the Singapore team was on the line waiting. She brought Toby to work on Saturdays and let him fall asleep on her assistant's couch while she went through manifests on the floor beside him. Andrews Maritime's Asia division doubled its revenue in the first year of Toby's life. She was 30 when she negotiated the contract that gave Andrews exclusive access to the East African coastline through 2035. She was 31 when she opened a Korean subsidiary registered in her own name. She was on the cover of Forbes Africa the month Toby turned 18 months old. She did not give an interview about her personal life. She did not file for divorce. She kept wearing Minho's ring. Not because she still belonged to him, because the ring was the cheapest, fastest way to keep the wrong kind of men from approaching her in lobbies, on planes, at conferences, in the elevators of buildings she had bought herself. The ring was a weapon. She wore it the way a soldier wears a uniform. In the second year, she tried 3 times. A Nigerian diplomat in Geneva who had courted her over 6 months of professional dinners. He took her hand at the end of the 3rd dinner, and she had taken it back so quickly she almost knocked over the wine. A Korean architect, gentle, divorced, a single father himself, who lasted 2 weeks before she stopped returning his calls without knowing why. A French banker she met at a Singapore conference who lasted exactly 1 dinner. He had been charming. He had been kind. He had walked her back to her hotel and stood in the lobby and asked if he could see her again. She had said yes. She had meant no. Each time she went out, the same thing happened. A car she did not recognize would be parked across the street from the restaurant when she arrived. A man in a dark coat would be reading a newspaper at the next table when she sat down. A second man would walk past the table on the way to the bathroom and never come back. She noticed once, then twice. By the 3rd dinner, she stopped looking. She told herself it was Andrew's security. Her father had a habit of placing men around her without telling her. She told herself a successful woman attracted attention. She told herself she had bigger problems than imaginary shadows. She did not ask her father. If she had asked, he would have told her, quietly, the way he told her everything, that he had never sent any men. She did not ask. She just stopped trying to date. By the time Toby turned 3 full years had passed since the doorway. 3 years since the white peonies. 3 years since Minho had spoken her name in a room she was in. She did not know that Choi Minho had not slept a full night in any of those 3 years. She did not know that he had been in the same city as her 68 times. She did not know that his men had photographs of every man she had ever sat across a table with, and that the photographs sat in a locked drawer in a study in a house she had once shared with him.
She did not know, but she was about to.
Because tomorrow was Friday, and Friday evening, she would walk into her own elevator and find that the man she had spent 3 years not thinking about was already standing inside. Friday evening. Tenny left the office at 5:14 p.m. The building was quiet. The Asia division had emptied out by 4. She had stayed back to sign 3 sets of contracts that needed her hand on the paper before Monday. Her driver had been told to wait downstairs. She stepped into the elevator on the 42nd floor. The doors closed before she registered that she was not alone. She had her phone in her hand. She had been reading an email from her father. The first warning came from her own reflection in the polished steel of the elevator wall, a second silhouette where there should not have been one. She looked up. Choi Minho was standing in the back corner. A black wool coat, a black suit underneath.
No tie.
His hands were in his pockets. He did not smile. He did not speak. The elevator began to rise.
Tenny did not breathe.
She watched the floors light up, 38, 39, 40, and her brain tried to do the math of how he had gotten into a private elevator, in a building she owned, in a city she had told him to leave her in. The math did not matter. He had gotten in. That was the only fact that mattered now. She moved her thumb to the security button on her phone. He moved faster. He took the phone out of her hand. He set it gently on the brass rail behind her. He did not raise his voice. He did not grab her shoulders. He stepped one step closer and looked down at her with eyes she had spent 3 years pretending she had forgotten. "Don't," he said. Then he pressed his hands above her hands against the elevator wall, slow, deliberate, not hard, and pinned her wrists there. His face was 4 inches from hers. "Tell me why," he said. She did not answer. She did not pull away. She held his gaze and held her silence, and refused him the single thing he had crossed 3 years to ask for. He did not let go. "Tell me why you stopped answering my calls," he said. "Tell me why you took your name off my mailbox. Tell me why I have not heard your voice say my name in 3 years." She breathed out through her nose. She did not speak. "Tell me," he said lower now, "why a Nigerian diplomat was holding your hand in a restaurant in Geneva. Tell me why a Korean architect drove you home from a concert hall in Busan. Tell me why a French banker stood in the lobby of the Marina Bay Sands and asked you to dinner, and you said yes." Her eyes went very still. She did not ask how he knew. She did not need to. "You had me followed," she said. Quiet. Flat. The first words she had spoken to him in 3 years. "For 3 years," he said. "You had men watching me sleep. I had men making sure no one else watched you sleep." She tried to twist her wrists. He did not let go. "Tell me why," he said again, and his voice broke for the first time. "Tell me why you walked out of that doorway and never let me explain. Tell me why you could give every other man in the world a yes, and you would not give me 1 minute of your time." She looked at him. She did not answer. She did not have to. He broke. Not the way men in movies break. Not loud, not theatrical. He broke the way men like him break when they finally cannot carry something any longer. His head dropped against hers. His forehead pressed against her forehead. His hands stayed above hers, but his grip went slack, and she could feel his shoulders shaking, and his breath came uneven against her mouth. "I have not slept," he whispered. "I have not slept in 3 years." She did not move. "Every restaurant you walked into, every man who pulled out a chair for you, every photograph that came back to me. Do you know what that does to a man, Tenny? Do you know what it does to a man who is married to you?" She closed her eyes. "I made one mistake," he said. "One stupid, vain, arrogant mistake. One night Sujin came to a door I should never have opened, and you walked into that house at the worst possible second of my life, and I have spent every day since trying to undo a moment that cannot be undone." His voice was raw. "I did not want her. I have never wanted her. I wanted you the day I saw you at the altar. I wanted you the night I touched your back at the gala. I wanted you on the night you let me into your bed, and I have wanted you every minute of every day for 3 years. I do not know how to keep being a man if I cannot have you." She opened her eyes. He looked apologetic. Choi Min-ho, heir to the syndicate, CEO of Choi International. The man rooms rearranged themselves around. She did not know when she stopped being afraid. She did not know when she stopped being angry. She knew only that her hands turned, slowly, under his, and her fingers laced into his fingers, and she pulled his mouth down to hers. The kiss was not careful. It was the kiss of 2 people meeting for the only time. The elevator doors opened on the 43rd floor, and neither of them noticed for almost a minute. She got the door open with one hand. He kept the other. They stumbled through the foyer of the penthouse, past a table she had set for one, past a low light she had left on for Toby's nightlight, past a hallway lined with photographs she had never let anyone in this city see. They did not make it to the bedroom on the first try. They did not need to. He said her name against her throat. Once, twice, the way a man says the only word he has been allowed to say in 3 years, and she let him. After. The room was dark. The city was a distant hum below the window. He lay on his back with one arm under her shoulders and his other hand against her sternum, and his breathing finally, slow. Neither of them spoke. She thought, for 1 full minute, that she was going to ask him to leave. She thought, for the next full minute, that she was going to ask him to stay. She did neither. She was watching him reach for his shirt at the foot of the bed when she heard the keypad chime. The front door opened. A small voice said, in clear, careful English, "Mommy?" Min-ho went very still. A second voice answered. Older. Warmer. Mrs. Janet. She is home, Omomi. Go and find her. Footsteps. Small ones.
Quick.
Tenny was already moving, already pulling the dressing gown across her shoulders, already swinging her legs off the bed. But she was not fast enough. The bedroom door pushed open. A small boy in a Navy school uniform and a tiny gray blazer walked into the room. He stopped 2 steps inside. He looked at his mother. He looked at the man in his mother's bed. He looked at the man's face for a long moment. Min-ho did not breathe. His face did not move. His eyes, the eyes Tenny had been hiding for 3 years, found a face that had the same shape, the same depth, the same stillness, the same eyes. Choi Min-ho looked at his son for the first time in his life, and the tears came before he could stop them. Toby turned to his mother. His face was small and serious and unsure. "Mommy," he said quietly. "Who is this man?" Tenny Andrews, businesswoman, who had run an empire and buried 2 uncles and walked out of a marriage without looking back, opened her mouth to answer her son. She looked at the man in her bed. She looked at her boy in the doorway. She made the only choice a mother makes. "He is an old friend, baby. He came to see Mommy after a long time." She held out her hand. "Come here. Let Mommy take you to Mrs. Janet." 3 years of silence ended in a sole bedroom on a Friday night. A mother kept a secret she had kept since the day she found out she was pregnant. A father met a son he did not know he had, and was not given permission to claim. And somewhere between the elevator and the bedroom door, the marriage that had started as a contract and broken on a betrayal became something neither of them had a name for. Now tell me, in the comments below, if you were Tenny, would you have answered Minho's question in the elevator? Or would you have held the silence the way she did? If you were Min-ho, could you have stayed silent when you saw your own eyes staring back at you from a face you did not know existed? Or would you have torn the world apart to claim him? And if you were Toby, 3 years old, looking at a stranger who had your face, what would you have asked? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell me where in the world you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications because Tenny Andrews has not made her last decision. We'll see you in the next episode.